Welcome to Case Note Friday, where I tell you a family law story every Friday. My name is Fadan. I'm a family law solicitor practicing in Sydney, Australia. I'm going to talk to you about one of my favourite cases from about 10 years ago. Now, in this case, I acted for the husband. His name was Peter, and his wife, let's call her Joy. Now, Peter and Joy were together for 10 years and they had no children. What makes this case interesting is, at the start of the relationship when they got together, Peter had a house. He had a little house. His house was worth, when they got together, $200,000. Now, the house was in country New South Wales. They didn't live in that house. It was always an investment property for him. He'd earned some savings when he was in his 20s and his parents helped him buy a house. There was no mortgage on that house. It was worth $200,000 with a little bit of rental income coming in. Now, Peter and Joy lived with Peter's parents. They lived rent-free at their house. Now, Joy got along well with her in-laws and didn't mind living in that house because it was a nice affluent suburb. It had a nice large backyard with a pool. It was a beautiful house. They lived there for their whole marriage with Peter's parents for their 10-year marriage. After 8 years of being together, sadly, Peter's dad went to a nursing home and his mum passed away. Not long after that, his dad also passed away. And Peter, being the only child, inherited their house. This is the house, the big house, I'll call it. The big house was worth $2.5 million with no mortgage. And remember, he had his little house worth $200,000. So altogether, their combined wealth was about 2.7. There really wasn't much else. He had a second-hand car. He had hardly any money in the bank. He was basically sponging off his parents for a long time. He did have a job doing retail where he'd do some stuff in Woolworths, stocking shelves, that sort of thing. But he didn't really have a career to speak of. She was a masseuse. She did massages, but a lot of it was cash and she wasn't declaring the income. Her English also wasn't great. Don't worry about it. So once they had been together, I said, once the parents died and he came into the house, and all of a sudden Joy says, that's it, I'm leaving you, I'm miserable in this marriage, and she leaves him. So of course, Peter's like, oh no, I have my inheritance house, my $2.5 million big house, and he has his small house, the regional house. Now, by the time she left, and during the case, we valued the small house and it ended up being worth $500,000. So Peter is vulnerable. He's vulnerable because Joy can make a claim, because that's all they had, and both of them are in his name, the big house and the small house. So, of course, Joy rushes off to a lawyer and gets the lawyer to send him a letter to say, that's it, I'm coming after your assets. Peter comes to consult me and says, Fadan, I need your help. I'm vulnerable here. There's no prenuptial agreement. I've got two houses, no mortgage. But let's not forget, I had this house at the beginning before I even met Joy, and I inherited this house. So she hasn't contributed to any of it. Why should I give her a goddamn thing? And I said, well, hate to say it, Peter, but you didn't have any protection in the form of a financial agreement or prenuptial agreement. And you were with her for 10 years. Okay, you didn't have any kids, but during the 10 years, she made contributions. Those contributions were of a non-financial kind. So when Peter came to see me, he wanted me to advise him, what's he looking at? What's the damage? What is he going to have to pay her? It's not going to be nothing, like he said. It's not going to be nothing. Her contributions were largely cooking, cleaning, not only for him, but for his elderly parents whilst they lived together. She did have some income from her masseuse side hustle, which she brought in some cash income, which helped with groceries and things like that. She didn't have to pay any bills. His parents paid the bills, but she did contribute to the house in a non-financial way. Cooking, cleaning, gardening, doing some shopping for his mum and sort of taking his mum out on outings and things because she had a license and could use the family car. So her contributions were something. They weren't nothing, despite what he said. So I said that, in my opinion, I think should get something like 10 to 15%. And even though his financial contributions were significant, both properties came in from him. The entire pot, 2.5, that house was valued at $500,000. So basically $3 million was all coming in from him. But the court looks are not just financial, but non-financial, right? So I said to him, oh, look, I think she could probably get 10 to 15%. If she got 10%, she'd be getting $300,000. If she got 15%, she'd get something like $500,000. So we tried to negotiate with her. Now, Joy said, well, you didn't really do much to get these properties because your parents, who loved me dearly, your parents loved me, Peter. And because they loved me, I think in my mind, they also left this house to us. Because remember, they were together when both parents died. She hadn't left him yet. So the will didn't say that. The will left it to him. But in her mind, this house was also hers. And all the struggles that she had living in that house with all of his family, she thinks she deserved more. So she said, this is a 50-50 case. I want $1.5 million. Give me $1.5 million. You can keep the little house and get a mortgage over this one for 1.5. Give me 1.5 and I'll leave. And I'm like, she's way off. This isn't a 50-50 case. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. That's what I said. So we go to court. We fight it. She has a solicitor who's fighting for her to say that it's a 50-50. I don't know how they said that with a straight face because it clearly wasn't. We went to mediation twice. The first time, she didn't move from the 50-50. The second time, she went down to 45%. Yeah, we didn't settle. I'd offered her 5% and at one stage 10%. She wouldn't take it. She was adamant that she got at least $1 million. Wasn't going to happen. So we went all the way to the end for a trial before a judge. The judge looked at all the evidence. She wasn't that great in the witness box, to be frank, but my guy was probably worse because he didn't want to acknowledge any contributions that she made and was somewhat disparaging of her in the box. That's why I've made him Gargamel in this story, because he was a bit of a villain in that witness box, really disrespectful towards Joy and the contribution she did make, which I kept telling him would amount to something. He's going to have to give her some money. He didn't want to do that. Anyway, the judge makes a decision and the judge awards her $500,000. Now, the judge, in the way the orders were drafted, said he has to pay her $500,000. I'll give him 60 days to raise the money. If he can't raise the money, then he can sell this property, which is worth $500,000, and she can get the money. And that was what the order said. Luckily for him, the judge didn't order that the big house be sold because that was his childhood home. He got it through inheritance. He was somewhat attached to this house. So the judge orders a trigger sale, the little house, the country house. So after the 60 days were up, I tried to help him get finance, but of course he couldn't because he couldn't get a mortgage that big. He said that his brother's going to help him raise some money to buy out Joy. As it turns out, he was like, you know what? I don't know how she afforded the legal fees the first time around. I think she had some family who helped her pay her fees. And he's like, she's never going to get this money out of you. I'm not paying her anything. Fadan, I don't need your help. I've got this. So I won't say I was fired. He just said, I'm just going to live with these orders. So, and I remember I did tell him that 15% could happen from the case. I think because he tanked in the witness box. Anyway, I didn't want to give her the 500. So he didn't give it to her. Years go by and he still hasn't paid her the money. I don't know this because I'm doing other cases. A couple of years go by. She brings the case back to court to enforce the orders that she had. And as it turns out, in the court, they said to him, you got to pay interest. You haven't paid her all these years. You've got to pay her some interest because you've defaulted on the obligation to pay her the $500,000. Anyway, he's then annoyed. He brings me back in. Fadan, I'm in trouble. I should have paid her. You were right. Now I have to pay her $500,000 plus the interest that has accrued these last couple of years. The interest was about $50,000. Yeah. So here I am trying to clean up his mess. In the negotiations, I said to her, why don't we just transfer this property to you? You can just get the whole property. You can rent it, you can live in it. And by then it would have gone up a little bit too. It was probably worth about $600,000 by the time of the enforcement hearing. She said, I'm happy just to take the property and to get this over with because she'd been waiting for her money for all these years. So we transferred the property from him to her and she got the property. And that was basically the end of the case. But here's the kicker. Remember how I said that he had this house in the beginning? He'd owned it for before the relationship. He'd bought it very, very cheap for $200,000 years earlier. It ended up being worth $600,000. At the time he transferred it to her, it was worth $600,000. Now, the capital gains tax on that he would have had to have paid, had he have sold the property, like the order said, and then given her the cash, he would have been liable for capital gains tax. But as it was, we transferred the property to her in specie, meaning she got the house itself. And any capital gain rolled over to her and would be triggered upon her selling it, not him. So I achieved, for him, I won't say he appreciated it, he didn't, that he didn't now have to pay this capital gains tax. He didn't have to pay the interest, and basically she got the house. As far as I understand, she still owns that house and she uses it as an investment property. So she didn't actually sell it. I don't know if she knows about that whole capital gains tax situation, but I was feeling somewhat chuffed that I saved, he didn't appreciate it, but I saved him that capital gains tax money, and maybe everybody lived happily ever after. Maybe not. It's not up to me to say. That's the end of the story. Now, because it's Easter, I'm going to eat these eggs. Don't worry about it.